proceeds during the 2011-2012 school year. To give you a little bit of background on this, pursuant to ARS 15-941K, Scott Walmer, the Director of Finance, will present information regarding the use of bond proceeds during the 2011-2012 school year. Mr. Walmer?
Yes, thank you, Madam President. Thank you, Board. Good evening. As you said, this presentation is required by statute each year that we spend bond proceeds in the month of September or October. We have to present the Board with summary information of how that money was spent. So this is kind of a new presentation for me. Last year, this whole thing fit on about 3 slides, and we had Papago School had been started, and we had maybe a project going on. So there's more information tonight. Admittedly, a lot of the slides don't need a lot of narration or anything, but we'll put it up here. And if you have questions about specific projects, Mr. Royce-Akanic is here to help with that. So just for review, we did pass a $44 million bond authorization. We have 6 years to issue those bonds and must reasonably expect to spend the proceeds in 85% of the proceeds in 3 years. The purpose of that statute is to prevent districts and governments from earning money on the interest that they have. So very briefly review, in 9-10 all we had was a little beginning design on Papago. In 10-11 demolition was done and construction had begun in earnest. And here's what we did for Papago in the most recent school year to finish it up. The last $10.1 million, mostly on actual construction. The trimmings that go on afterwards, like the playground and some network infrastructure, which was E-rate projects. That's why it wasn't included in the main construction. And before we move on to the others, so this is 3 years worth of expenditures, but this is the grand total for Papago School. Now I have school by school listings of the projects that happen at each school. So I'm just going to leave each slide up here for a few seconds, and if you have questions about them, please feel free.
Mr. Walmer, I had thought about pulling off a previous board agenda item, and I don't intend to necessarily go back to that, but since this relates to it, we did previously approve use of M&O funds for HVAC services earlier in this agenda, and I'm seeing HVAC here. Can you explain to me maybe why HVAC might fall under M&O occasionally and might fall under bond?
Yeah, the vendor that you approved earlier, that was for repair and maintenance kinds of jobs. These are actually units that were brought in and mounted on the buildings.
And repair and maintenance, just coming out of M&O, is that something that would have previously been funded by building renewal formula before it was cut by the state?
No, maintenance has always been M&O. The building renewal was to keep buildings up to statute. I'm correct about that, right?
Yeah, you'd have to do the same thing as bond. It'd have to be a total replacement of a unit or total replacement of a roof, no repair, no patch, no stuff like that.
So that's always been the rub with those programs. The state has always used that as an excuse. The state would love to furnish buildings with all this equipment, but they don't trust districts to maintain them. So some of the reporting we do, we're asked to demonstrate that we performed all the maintenance in exchange for equipment that SFE would have provided had they still functional.
So again, this is funding, and I think I recall us approving this. This is funding for new actual air conditioning units that we spent with bond money, correct? And is that money that would have, if we were still being funded for building renewal, is that something that would come out of that fund and not out of the bonds?
Yes. That's exactly what that money was for.
So that's another example, just last comment, of how maybe property taxpayers are having to pick up costs with local property taxes when it's not getting funded by the state.
Very much so, yeah. And you'll see later on with the quarterly budget piece, our capital budget, and where that's going, and the competing uses for that very small amount of money.
Can you explain what millwork is?
Yes, millwork, if you relate back to the PowerPoint that I put on showing all the summer projects, those was all the cabinetries and sinks and all that kind of stuff that I showed you in pictures that we took out that were falling apart. We put all nice new ones in, new sinks, new cabinets, new shelving. That's what millwork is. This would be called millwork here, making this comment.
Thank you.
You bet.
Come across that in social services.
So I'm not sure everybody's seen these slides. Anyone have to go back?
Oh, really? Okay.
People are taking notes.
Sorry.
Oh, okay. Absolutely.
Could you talk a little bit about the roofing for,
Yes, on most or all of these projects, excuse me, the SFB, and I was part of the team when we did this years ago on preventative maintenance and life cycles. What you're seeing here is like roofing. Gateway had what they call a styrofoam roof. Its life expectancy was 10 years. And we tried to maintain it, keep it up to make that 10 years. Well, we did better than that. We made almost 13 and a half, 14 years on it. We had several leaks, leaking in, starting to damage the interior of the buildings and stuff like that. So instead of spending more money, it was time to replace it. And now we replace it, and we've got like a 12-year warranty roof on there now. We go for another 12 years.
Any more questions on that slide?
I've noticed on several slides that you have surveillance, and could you?
Yes. Our surveillance system, which is the cameras, started, if I remember, 2003, 2004. I went to Pam Burkhardt and I applied for a grant, and that's where it started. We started off, I think, with $500,000 or so to get our surveillance started. But surveillance systems are like our computers. As time goes on, we were in an analog stage. We got to the point again of life expectancy of these units. We were scavenging parts from all over the United States just to try to keep them going again. And then technology changed, went from analog to digital. Now we're replacing and updating everything to the latest and greatest. That's where we're at with that.
And what, again, what were the walls at Loma Linda? I know I've seen fencing and others, but.
Yes, walls at Loma Linda, if you go back to that PowerPoint again, it was where the termites over at Loma Linda ate out all the walls, all the pictures I showed you of the crumbling of the walls. We took everything out. We cleaned it up really good. I had a pest company come in. We drilled to keep the little critters out of here, and we put up all new walls, paint, and tack work.
I don't know how I could have forgotten that. I remember that
We had
very
several
well now,
pictures
thank
of
you.
piles of just nothing. We have Mackin. Questions? Monte Vista? Questions?
Could you
Yes.
in terms of parking lot.
Okay,
and- yeah.
parking lot, this was one of our challenges from the Auditor General. The challenge was to keep children safe, not running between cars, not running between buses, and that's what your top fencing is, that's the east parking lot. We had to have a safe and secure area for teachers to park because vandalism was happening during the day. Things were disappearing, so we got that part done, and phase two was the front parking lot. We temporarily did some stuff to make sure it was gonna work before we permanently put it in place. Once it worked, then we permanently put up fencing, gating, and a whole new bus lane up front. That's with all that parking lot and fencing and all that stuff. You see a lot of plumbing on there, just to give you a heads up. Again, plumbing, our buildings are going almost on 60 years old. Some are old buildings, and all that plumbing in the wall now is starting to decay. Copper's starting to get holes in it, and we're starting to, and again, it was a picture we showed in the bathroom. We had to tear the whole wall out, take everything off the wall, put all new plumbing trees in, all new copper, put it all back together again, because it was really starting to not smell good in those bathrooms.
Ryan,
Yes, ma'am.
you mentioned at LCK about the termite damage and all that.
Yes, Roman.
I'm sorry,
Okay. Roman.
Lowen, the termite damage and that. Do the schools, since termites are a problem in Arizona, maybe so generally, I mean, if you have any wood, you've got termite damage. Do we have anything going as a continual workup with the schools on a rotating basis, or maybe once a year, they're all checked out for termite damage and sprayed and done that, rather than wait until something totally decays?
We have University Pest on contract with us now, they're pest control people, and they do have a program with us. They check out the schools every month. They'll go walk through, see if they see any kind of indication of, it could be cockroaches, it could be rodents, it could be, you could see tunnels coming on the wall or anything, then automatically call me, we'll discuss it. We'll see what the damage is, if there is damage. If not, then we go ahead and do a treatment to that individual building. Because those little critters are tricky. They can take this building and not touch the building over there and not touch any of the houses there. So it's a one-time thing. When it happens, you take care of that. You don't take care of the whole site, because that'd be very, very costly. Just to do termite spray and do it properly. Just to give you an idea, like to do this building here, it would cost probably around $70,000.
That's the tenant, yeah.
Yeah.
I was just wondering, so there is some kind of preventive maintenance in checking for
Yeah, it's a vision.
critters?
It's a vision.
Okay. And since you mentioned rats and mice and stuff like that, since this area and the others, district office and district office north are included in that?
Yes, yes.
Okay, thank you.
That this building and that building's on a program as we speak.
Thank you.
So here's our cash position currently, or as of June 30th, I should say. $22,011,000 original issue. We have $2.5 million in cash remaining at June 30th. We do have authorization to issue $22 million additionally in bonds. Our ceiling is far less than $22 million, and in the absence of any legislation that raises that ceiling, we won't be able to issue that other full $22 million. Our secondary assessed valuation would have to rise over 40% in the next 3 years in order for us to do that. We're certain that's not going to happen. So in the near future, we'll have to put some new strategies in place of how we finish out. So with that $2.5 million, these are the projects that have been approved for 2012-13.
Can you explain the EMS system under Gateway?
Yes, it's called an energy management system. That's the system, it's a computer system that controls all of the heat pumps that are sitting on the roof, all your cooling and your heat. Again, as a life cycle, that system was put in when the building was new, we're going on 15 years. That system should have been replaced, probably 6-7 years ago, but we upgraded to try to keep up with the time. And at this point in time, it's going to cost more to try to upgrade it than it is to replace it. And that helps us in the long run to save electrical energy.
Lloyd, could you talk a little bit about how you came to these lists for the future?
Yes, again, it goes back to life cycle. Went through, I've got a list of an inventory of most of everything in this district. And when you go back to one of my goals that I presented to Dr. Bodner, probably 3 years ago, was life cycle programs. And I have several systems, and there's 7 systems that you follow, that the state follows, that you follow on your life cycle program, like carpeting. Carpeting goes anywhere from 5 to 10 years in life cycle. It all depends on what kind of classroom it is, kinder, 1, 2, 3, or 6, 7, 8. You can get that life expectancy out of it. So everything on those lists was like in a life expectancy in those areas that were the worst of the worst throughout the whole district. They have to get those problems taken care of now, or they're going to cost more money in the future than it would be to take care of them now. And it's all on life cycle. Like the plumbing you see there, it's a lot of the plumbing was in the walls, like I was speaking about. Right now, our hot water heaters have been going out like crazy, because they're already beyond their life cycle and they start leaking, and we start replacing them. Linda had a couple in the kitchens, one of the 120-gallon tankers. We opened the door one day and water comes rolling out. So it's there. Most of our stuff is beyond our life cycle because we've been preventative maintenance, taking care of, trying to get as much as we could get out of it.
No further questions? Thank you, Mr. Satanic and Mr. Walmer.
You're welcome.
Mr. Walmer, you get to be up here for a couple more things. The next agenda item is the annual financial